base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's March 2nd. It is an overreaction Monday, and there are things to overreact about. Josef Martinez, last night, around 5:30, 6 o'clock, Atlanta United announced that he has an ACL tear in his right knee. I don't know the extent. Surgery will be scheduled here very soon. It's hard to know how long it will be. There are reports out there that he's out for the whole season. That is not confirmed, and it can't be confirmed right now. There's no way to know the timetable until you know the damage of the tear. So keep that in mind whenever you're reading some of the reports. There's going to be a lot of stuff to cover today. It's probably going to get really complicated with a lot of different things. So we will do our best to try to make sense of it, and we don't have all the answers. Nobody does right now. So, that's where we're at the moment. This happened a few hours ago. I've already had people yelling at me yesterday about, well, Atlanta United needs to sign somebody now. They just announced that it was an ACL injury, people. These things don't happen easily. We'll try to cover the parameters of what they can do and what they can't do, because that's been very complicated as well. So if you have questions about all of it, and I know there's a bunch already in the queue, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We're going to get to everything this morning. It's probably going to run long. If you're listening later, you skim through the parts you don't care about or put us on that chipmunk speed, and we'll be okay. Let's get through the highlights from the match, because there was a match on Saturday, and it was a 2-1 win for Atlanta United. It was a good win on the road in Nashville. Look, Nashville played pretty well, and they made life difficult for Atlanta United, but early on, it was Ezequiel Barco who created the first breakthrough for Atlanta.
It's Meza at the edge of the 18, passing across to the near side, Escobar. Escobar is able to dribble around Leal. Up to the halfway line and ahead to Josef. Back to Franco. Popped ahead towards Barco. And it rolls to Barco's boots now. Barco, 20 yards from goal, coming forward. Shot from distance. Score! And the boat has set sail down the Cumberland River. Ezequiel Barco puts Atlanta United on the board in the 9th minute.
That got things started, and then Nashville found an equalizer on a set piece through Walker Zimmerman.
So this is about 30 yards from goal to the left of Guzan as Nashville attacks the goal to our left. And it is Mukhtar up to the ball, striking to the penalty spot. It is Zimmerman who scores! Rolled right to Walker Zimmerman, who pokes it past Guzan, and Nashville has its first goal in club history.
Big moment for them, but then things got a little weird on Emerson Hyndman's absolute golazo to make it 2-1. Ultimately ended up being the match winner. Assistant referee put the flag up for a second, then put it down, and this is why referees are taught now to keep their flag down, let VAR sort everything out. There was a question on where the ball came from that went to an Atlanta player that was in an offside position. It came from a Nashville player. That means that player's onside. That's why a flag going up can cause confusion, but it's always been the case. Nothing's changed in this. The flag doesn't stop play. The whistle does, and everybody hesitated for a second, except for Atlanta United. They bounced back quick enough, and Emerson Hyndman did this.
Atlanta United took the 5th most corners in the league last year. Barco in the near corner to strike this. Up to the ball, sends it to the front post. It bounces right to Escobar. Now the offside flag comes up. Confusingly, the ball is reserved into the box, and it's settled by Hyndman with the volley. Golazo! Oh, my goodness!
Everybody was upset about that if they were wearing yellow, and there was really nothing to be upset about. So that's what happens when the flag goes up when it shouldn't. Everybody stops, and Emerson Hyndman just breaks out a moment of quality like that. Atlanta made that hold up. They almost added a third, and this has become a bigger talking point than it really should. It wouldn't have affected the match on Saturday night. If anybody should be upset about it, it's Giovanni Savarese and the Portland Timbers, because they play Nashville next, and Nashville According to most, and now there are explanations around it, and we'll talk about it briefly because, again, it's not a major talking point from the match. It's been made into a bigger thing than it is. This is what it sounded like when Joe Willis committed a handball about 45 yards from his own goal.
Return to win by McCarty, dribbling around Rometti. Another cross, headed back into the corner, not cleared. It's going to roll to McCarty at the corner of the 18 to win in the corner. Back to McCarty, corner of the 18. Back to Win on the touchline. Atlanta United is in shape. Win now dribbling around Mulraney, into the box. A low cross blocked down by Hindman, cleared by Atlanta United. Way off his line is Joe Willis. Comes all the way out to midfield. Barco takes the ball away. Willis is off his line. Barco's tripped, knocked down by a hand. It was knocked down by a hand.
Yellow?
Yes, the yellow card is given to Miller, but shouldn't that be dog show?
That's a red card.
That's a red card dog show.
How is that a yellow card?
It's a handball at the 45 by a non-goalkeeper. It wouldn't matter if it was the goalkeeper. That is a dog show red. The game should be over.
I've never seen anything like that. So blatant handball, 40 yards from goal.
Now, we did get an explanation from Howard Webb, who oversees Pro, and a couple things. So we were incorrect in saying dogzo because, according to Howard Webb, and it's right when you break down I guess the intent of the laws of the game here. A couple things. There's nothing in the laws of the game to say it's an automatic red. There's nothing there, so that doesn't exist. But it's not denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity, according to Howard Webb and Pro, because the goal-scoring opportunity was taken. It was a shot. And that's accurate. That's accurate. So Barco shot, and the ball's knocked down with the hand. Now, the question is, was the shot on goal? Never got an angle from behind it, so I don't know. I don't know if the VAR did. It looked to be, from our angle, it looked to be headed towards goal. There was a defender that was dropping deeper, but again, never saw an angle to see how deep they were. Barco struck the ball well. It's knocked down 10 yards away from him, so we didn't get a full picture of the trajectory of it. For me, this creates a very large loophole that, in these cases, typically, this is a red card. And I think Joe Willis's the look on his face looked like he expected a red card. The explanation to justify the yellow, I mean, the explanation's valid. I don't necessarily agree with it, but the actual words and reasons for giving a yellow, I see their logic. I disagree because I think that's a shot that is, from the limited amount of distance that we got to see, 10 yards, was headed towards goal, and I don't know if there would have been a defender who could have been able to save it with a header or chesting it down or what have you. So I think those ultimately should be red cards. If there is any question about the shot being on goal and that happens, it should be a red card, because now I think you create the situation where, you know, if players do something similar and they get a red card, they're going to have a justified argument. I don't like the precedent that's been set here. And no, I haven't seen anything like this really before. For some of the people who have, I don't know why these things create such argument and people getting very, uppity about it back and forth. Pretty much every major soccer outlet or media person was losing their mind about this not being a red card. So I don't think there was a majority of people who realized what Howard Webb was saying here. The distance from the goal, I think there's been a lot of explanations that are not correct. Howard Webb gave you the official explanation because it's not a denying of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. So things like distance and et cetera, all those things don't really apply here. It's a little different. The shot was taken. Anyway, it doesn't affect the result here. It doesn't affect anything. It's a crazy moment, and it deserved crazy conversation afterwards, and it got it. Be curious to see what else comes from it this week, if anything. But the biggest news after that was Josef Martinez, who had been substituted out. Not sure what the extent of the injury was immediately. After the match, there were pictures and discussion about him in a air cast, full leg, couldn't put any weight on it, was trying to walk with a crutch, had to be helped with a cart to the team bus, and the news came out yesterday that it is an ACL tear. So that's going to dominate the majority of the conversation today. Wanted to get into the highlights, wanted to get into a few things from the match itself, but look, you lose your number 9, you lose the best goal scorer in the league for, in a hopeful sense, I think 6 months. Beyond that is I don't know if it's more likely or not because you don't know the extent of the injury, but 6 months would be fast, and it would mean that it's not a very bad tear, and it's an easier rehab than most. And that's what you're crossing your fingers for at this point because you don't want it to be something that lingers. But this is going to make the Atlanta United season in 2020 very, very complicated, and what they can do right now is very, very complicated. And, John, we got a lot of stuff to get into. I don't know where you want to start. Go for it, wherever you want.
All right, let's talk about the good out of match 1. Looking at individual performances, loved what I saw out of Walks, Meza and his calmness, Lawrence Weick stepping in at 45 for Franco Escobar, coming in and not being intimidated by his surroundings. Brad Gazan, everybody giving him the pep talks and the encouragement as he came in. Enjoyed seeing that. We saw the speed of Jake Mulroney and the positives there. We saw what PB&J could do in 60 minutes. And, literally you could go up and down the 11 and sit there and say, yep. So I think that there are a lot of positives that we could take from individual performances. And that was just a couple that popped into the top of my head. Obviously, the talking points are the goal that wasn't, and we've had folks on the timeline talk about their own ideas where that was concerned, and then obviously everybody is discussing what happened with Josef, and I know a lot of folks want to know about what you can and can't do when it comes to rosters and salaries and allocation money and what you can do there. That has dominated the timeline, no surprise, but I do think that Katie Weaver gets bonus points this morning out of the blocks by saying, does PB&J now turn into a PBR?
It could be a PB&J still, just a different version of jelly on top with Adam John. So you've got different options. There's not going to be an easy solution, and I think that has to be understood. But the flip side is that there are solutions, and I think the doomsday folks are just not correct. Look, we see this happen with teams. We see players going into a season get injured. You see players in tournaments get injured, and teams have to find a way. I think you can here. If it's Pity Martinez as a false 9, Mateo Sosatu comes into the attacking midfield position, you keep the same 3-4-3. It's going to function a little differently, but can you play with that? Yeah, I think you can. I think there's a lot of appealing things about that. Could you go with Adam John as the number 9 and keep Pitti and Barco where they are and play Mateo Sosatu in one of the holding midfield roles behind? You could. And Adam John gives you a completely different element as a number 9. A big size, a target forward who can knock the ball down for others. It opens up some doors that you don't have right now. Could you go out into the market? Absolutely. And that was something that Frank de Boer talked about. You're more than likely, at a minimum, going to need to go out into the market for depth if you like what you have. And at a max, you're looking to go get somebody who's going to come in and be that replacement for Josef Martinez. Now, a couple things just in my mind about this, and look, we don't know because the injury happened, I'm trying to think time-wise, like 10 o'clock.
36.
I got it. 10 o'clock Saturday night. And you didn't know anything until you got back to Atlanta early Sunday. You announced it early in the evening on Sunday. Maybe you knew a few hours before that, but you haven't had time to really do a whole lot just yet. So strategy and all that, people are like, well, what's the list? Come on, it just happened. And you weren't looking for strikers before. You weren't linked to strikers. You weren't scouting strikers. You weren't looking at any strikers like this before. So there's nothing to go on. I think a couple things you have to keep in mind here, and there's two that make it kind of interesting. Let's just start with the idea that Josef Martinez, I think after his recovery, is going to come back and can potentially give you the kind of year that Jordan Morris gave Seattle last year, which was outstanding. And there's no reason to think at his age, with what he's done, that he's going to come back and struggle. So you're not bringing somebody in to replace Josef Martinez for years and years and years. You're bringing somebody in to replace Josef Martinez for 2020. Now, you have to adapt the situations as they come. This has been a team that predominantly has played one typical number 9, where we saw them in a 3-5-2 last year, at times when it really played like a 3-5-2, and Barco or Pitti was the second forward. That's not two traditional number 9s. That's a very different kind of setup. So we haven't seen much of this team. I mean, you could go back to the Tata Martino days. They're not valid here, but you haven't seen them play with two true strikers really much at all. And I don't know if you could ever say you have from the start in the Frank de Boer era. At times late in a match, sure, you're bombing things forward. You're trying to do what you got to do. But to start, no. So you're not bringing in you're not going to play two number 9s probably going forward. Now, if the right player becomes available and you decide this is what we're going to do, and then we'll make those decisions when we get down the road, cool. That can happen, because this has opened up a door that you were not planning to see open. Now, what this could also mean is you're looking at a veteran. You're looking at a guy who's going to come in. I mean, it could be an older player. It could be a guy in the last couple of years of his career who's coming in for an opportunity to be a bit of a hired gun. Happens all the time. And things happen, injuries happen, player loses form. You have an opportunity to go get somebody who's done it, proven it, and bring them in to be part of this team that has the goals that they do. Every trophy, MLS Cup, Supporter Shield, CONCACAF, all of it. So if you have a chance to go get a top veteran, that would make a lot of sense here, because it would be somebody that you're not expecting to replace Josef Martinez long term. It'd be for a year. You could go get a player who could play as a 9, but could also play as a winger later on if you want to play a little more 4-3-3. And I know there's been some questions already about Manuel Castro, and can he be that guy? I don't know if you can really wait to see. He hasn't played as a 9 in anything that I've been able to see. He's always been on the wing. Could he be that player? I mean, anything's possible, but you haven't even had him train yet. So I don't know if you really want to wait on that one. Now, timing gets interesting, too, on two different things. We know the situation with visas. We know how difficult visas are, and it has appeared to be a situation where some countries are easier than others to bring players in from. And that has to weigh into this in some discussions. I think also you have the opportunity to trade within the league, and you're not worried about a visa situation there. And there are players in this league, there are number 9s in this league that would likely be available, or others that you might be able to coerce into being available. For example, one that has scored double-digit goals in this league before, CJ Sapong, didn't make the 18 for Chicago on the weekend. Now, he's a very different kind of player there, but could he be a player that you're going to be asking about? Yeah, he absolutely could. Absolutely could. I mean, he's a player who is athletic. I would worry about him in the possession style, and that's what you'd have to scout out. Would he be the one who could give you some of the elements that Josef gave you in terms of dropping deep? Don't know. And that's a big question, because you don't want to change your whole team style because of this. You want somebody who's going to fit. There's other guys out there. So this is going to be interesting in that regard. Now, from a roster rule perspective, here's what I know, and I don't have the full roster rules in front of me. Nobody does unless you're in a front office. We have what the league has published, and we have precedent to go on, and also there are some new rules that are seemingly emerging on an hourly basis. But you cannot add another designated player, because even if you put Josef Martinez on the season-ending injury list, it doesn't give you cap relief, it gives you roster relief. So you still have to make the cap work, and it doesn't take him out of a designated player slot. Now, there's been a lot of questions about this season-ending injury replacement player. That doesn't really come into play for Atlanta yet, and it shouldn't come into play for their replacement unless they want it to, because they have, according to Darren Eales on Stoppage Time on Friday afternoon, they have an open roster spot, they have an open international spot. Now, we don't know how much cap space they have, and that's the part that is the guessing game. But there's some fairly safe assumptions that they have some combination, and you can't combine them in a deal, but they have two different ways in terms of allocation money and discretionary targeted allocation money. So we know they've acquired a lot of allocation money in the trades in the offseason. We don't know if and how much of the discretionary targeted allocation money they have spent or are planning to spend this year. But I think it's a safe assumption that you've got far more than the injury replacement player limits of $250,000 to work with to spend here. I think when you start talking about potential replacements, you do have to be realistic. You do have to, look at this in a very realistic way. You can't go get anybody. You are going to have some cap limitations. Your max in terms of a TAM would be just over $1.6 million in salary this year. That's going to rule out some of the names that have been floated around already. And you have to think about teams that wouldn't want to make a trade just yet. Now, in MLS, you can bring guys in for 2 more months. So you've got time. You've also got a CONCACAF Champions League first leg quarterfinal looming in a week and 2 days. So that could accelerate it. And that's what makes this tricky. If you go get a player within the league, they could play for you in that match on Wednesday in Mexico City. You're good because you're not worried about visas or anything like that. You go get a player from outside the league, then you're solving the problems for that match in the Azteca with what you have. And you might feel comfortable to do that with what you have. This is going to be a fascinating watch because there are a variety of ways to solve it with the players you have. There are players within the league that you could bring that could fit, and there are players outside the league that you could bring in that could fit. It is a situation that no one expected, and it's a situation that is very, very open-ended in terms of how it gets resolved. It's going to be a wild few days, and it could be longer than that, because I think in a perfect world, you'd like to know a little bit more on the timeline of how long Josef Martinez is going to be out, and you're probably waiting until after the surgery is completed to know that, or at least have a better guess on that timeline. If it's on the shorter end, that could lead you more to solve the problems with what you have, add some depth, move forward. If it's on the longer end, that could open up some possibilities that are bigger. So let's get into it. We got tons of stuff. I don't know where you want to go, John. I mean, we've got stuff from the game on Saturday. I don't know if that's where people want to really be at the moment. I think we're probably on Josef and replacements for Josef and what happens going forward. So I'd rather stay there for now. We'll get the other stuff later if we can. If we have to do that tomorrow, we will. But let's go through all of the possibilities about how Atlanta United deals without Josef Martinez.
John Roper has come in this morning and is saying that the sky is falling, the season's over, #overreaction Monday. Now, to be rational, and you've already started in this discussion, work in the front office, start looking for a striker for depth. But a follow-up question from John. Anyone on the twos squad that jumps out, #season not over, #get well soon Josef?
No, there's not. And I don't think that's going to be the type of replacement you're looking for here. Jackson Conway would be one that you'd think about, but he's coming off of a broken foot. He's got to play with the twos for a while first before you even think about that. He's only in his second year as a pro. I just don't think there's a player there that makes sense to bring up immediately, because if you do that, then you're going to roll with what you have, which is fine, but that would mean that you're either going to go with Pity Martinez as a 9, false 9, whatever you want to call it, or Adam John as the 9. You're still going to need more depth, and I think more proven depth. There's not a USL championship established number 9 with the twos. There isn't. Adam John comes in with MLS experience, but also a huge year in USL Championship last year with 17 goals. You don't have anything comparable with Atlanta United 2 right now, so I don't think that plays into it.
A lot of folks have mentioned possible replacements from around the globe. Daniel Sturridge's name has come up in the timeline.
Well,
because
don't just throw that out there like it's nothing. This is actually pretty important. Daniel Sturridge was released from his contract in Turkey. Now, he's available on a free. This gets a little tricky because you're already getting people who don't understand the rules at Tottenham, at Aston Villa, demanding that they sign him. They can't. They literally cannot sign him because he was released after the transfer window closed. They can't bring him in. MLS can. Now, there are already reports that he is linked with a move to Miami. If that's the case, and I don't know if that's true or not. Miami needs a number 9. They started their first-round draft pick, Robbie Robinson, up top yesterday, and I think they'd rather have a bigger name in that position. Daniel Sturridge would be a bigger name in that position. If Miami's talking to him, they have a designated player spot. If that's the case, I think you're talking about a salary that Atlanta United could not make work because of you have 3 designated players, and you're not going to be able to do it. The other question about Daniel Sturridge, and look, you want to look at his injury history? And he's injured right now, according to most reports. He last played on February 22nd, left the match early in the second half, listed as a toe injury. He missed some time prior to that with a toe injury. I mean, I'm just reading back through on soccerway.com. Toe injury, knock, calf muscle strain, Achilles tendonitis, hamstring, thigh muscle strain, groin pelvis injury, hip thigh injury, ankle foot injury, calf shin injury, knock, hamstring. That's the last 4 years. And it goes much, much further back than that. That's risky. It has to be. I mean, it's risky. So I don't know. I more than anything, I don't know because of the salary. I don't know if he would come for a salary that would be $1.6 million or so. And my first thought about this was, if he was the Atlanta guy, the easier way would have been for Trabzonspor to keep him and loan him and basically pull the Christian Pavone kind of move that the Galaxy did last year, where he was on loan, and the loan fee and the amount of salary that the Galaxy were paying did not classify him as a designated player. So they were able to have, essentially, 4 designated players. One reason why they were doing that was Roman Alessandrini, who was a designated player, was injured. He came back at the very end of the season. So they were able to find a workaround and have a designated player level talent, and now he is a designated player, on a non-designated player contract. But they did that because he was on loan. And Boca, and I didn't see a contract in this, but the amount of the loan fee, which I think had been reported as 0, and the amount of salary that the Galaxy were on the hook for, which I don't know what that number was. I think the MLSPA had $1.2 million for him. Don't know if that was full salary or what. But with no loan fee and that number, that keeps him under being a designated player. You can buy it down. But with Sturridge now being on a free, just the salary is, you're going to pay the salary and that's it. And is he going to come for less than 1.6 or less than whatever amount of allocation money? If you want to throw every bit of allocation money you have, which probably isn't a smart play. But if you did, and you want to throw everything at him, do you have enough to buy him down so where he's not a designated player? I don't know. I'm going to lean to no, but we don't know for sure. I think his salary, and this is unofficial reporting, I've seen around 1.8 million pounds in Turkey. I don't know. I don't know if you can make it work, and I don't know if you want to with the injury history, and you'd want to find out about this toe injury that is immediately hobbling him right now. I don't know. I don't know if that's the one you want to go to.
And Stizole had thrown out with the Chinese league on shutdown. Could Solomon Rondon be picked up on loan? Is this even possible?
It's possible because of the loan. Now, the question on that, it gets really complicated in terms of the visa situation. How quick would you be able to get a visa with a player coming from China right now? I really don't think it would be very fast. And I actually don't know what the process is about people coming over from China, period, at the moment with travel and with restrictions that are in place due to the coronavirus outbreak. The Chinese league was originally supposed to start not this past weekend, but the weekend before. The start of the league's been pushed back to the beginning of April. So it hasn't been completely postponed. I don't know if teams are even willing to let guys go. I doubt a team would be willing to loan a guy for the full MLS season, and I think that's more of what you're looking for here. So I think the Chinese league option is the least likely for a number of reasons. Visa, getting into the country, and reluctance from Chinese league teams to let guys go. Now, if players try to force their way out, that gets really complicated. I don't think that happens quickly in any way. I think there are other options that are as good or better that will be able to happen much more quickly. I think a player like Rondon, and again, you're going to have to really get creative if you're doing a loan there in terms of the loan fee and the salary amount and how you make it work. The Galaxy set a blueprint when it came to Christian Pavón, but that was also with an obligation, I would assume, to buy. I don't think Boca, just out of the goodness of their heart, said, yeah, we won't take a loan fee and we will only have this amount of salary go to you so you can make it all work financially just because we like you guys. I mean, they love Guillermo Barros Escaloto, but money's money. I think there was an obligation to buy. And this gets back to the big picture, and this is why you have to think about this strategically. You would not be buying Salomon Rondon to replace Josef Martinez long term. So you're looking for somebody for a year. That loan arrangement gets trickier if there's not the buy option at the end. If you were going to do something like that, and this is where you do think long-term, big picture, you're thinking about somebody who could play out wide or could play deeper because there is the possibility of an Ezequiel Barco move at some point down the road in the next year. So if you were able to bring somebody in on loan, have them available for this year on loan, not as a designated player, but with the expectation that they would become a designated player next year when a spot opens up, it's a lot of moving parts. Is it possible? Sure. But you're not going to bring in another number 9 because Josef Martinez is your number 9. When he is healthy and he is recovered, he's your guy. So you have to think about that too. Rondon doesn't really fit that bill. I think that one, I think it's so complicated with the Chinese Super League, the, virus outbreak and visa situation. I just don't know when you could actually get him in.
Along that line with the comment about the Galaxy, Charlie Benz says he thinks it's stupid you can't get a replacement DP straight up. I know it's the rules, but it's still stupid. The league will only grow if the teams make it grow. Get creative, Atlanta United. Pull a Galaxy move and help the league grow. J/K, or am I?
Those are very different. This is a whole mess of stuff thrown into a big pile at the moment. I understand the rule about not being allowed to, say, well, this guy's injured and we're going to add another designated player and yada, yada. I get it. Now, could they clarify the rules to allow a season-ending designated player injury, allow you to replace a designated player? I wouldn't be against it. I think it would have to be absolute season ending. There wouldn't be any wiggle room up bringing a player back. You wouldn't want to create a situation where we've seen in some leagues in the past where they have a limit of 5 foreign players on the roster at any given time, but they sign 6 or 7, and they can only put 5 on the active roster, and they're moving guys back and forth. I don't think you want to create that type of scenario. So it would have to be a season-ending injury list and be able to do it, and then that player wouldn't be able to come back in the season. It's complicated. It would create situations where teams might try to stash players. It would open up some things. There's plenty of ways to solve this. There's plenty of different ways around it. And the long-term thing here is, if you're going out to get a designated player in that way and you're going to spend that way, you're probably looking at somebody who would be here for a while, and I don't know if that's what you're looking for. I don't know if you're looking for a number 9 to be here for a while, because you're expecting Josef Martinez to be back and take that spot. So you're almost looking for a short-term replacement here. And whether that's somebody who can play that position on a temporary basis and then move to another, somebody who is older and towards the end of their career, somebody who you're truly figuring out a way to get on loan and they go back to their original team next year, I don't know. But there's a lot of pieces to it. It's not just, go get Lionel Messi on loan. No, it's not that simple. It's just not that simple. So I understand the MLS rules on this one. I wish maybe there was an option to, open up more relief, more space for a season-ending injury. I do understand why they don't. Maybe it's something to look at in the long term. But right now, the rules are the rules, and you just got to do it. You can do what the Galaxy did. But the thing about the Galaxy that you have to keep in mind, they didn't just do it because Boca's suckers. They did it because they were going to buy Christian Pavón. So it was basically like a low down payment to then pay for him when it fit the Galaxy's budget. Now, in this case, that might not be what Atlanta's looking for, so it's going to be harder to pull off a creative move like that because there's not the eventual purchase where the team gets what they want instead of having to take just a lesser amount because they want to be nice. That's not how business works.
Let's see. Kyle Kessler this morning has some thoughts about the match and then some formational stuff now that Josef is gone, so we'll take it one at a time. Kyle says, great win over the weekend. The midfield looks good. Mulroney's speed is fantastic, and Anton Walks is solid. Then he gets into the Josef stuff, so I'll stop right there.
Yeah, Walks was really, really good. He was our man of the match on radio, I thought, especially because he looked a little banged up at the end. Walks has been a really nice addition. He's a player who, we saw in 2017. He looks a lot different now because he's been through a lot of just physical, difficult play with Portsmouth. He went through a promotion chase with Portsmouth. He's played in big matches with them. He just comes in as a more professional, more mature player, and it's shown. It's shown in a big way. He's looked really good at center back, actually. Mulroney was really good in this one, especially defensively. Did he get beaten a couple times? Yeah. Did he beat people a few times? Yep, he did that too. That's what you're going to get out of a wing back, but I liked that he was much better defensively in this one than he was against Motagua, because the first half against Motagua, he was a liability defensively. He was not that at all here. I thought he did really well, and his ability to get forward and beat people on the dribble is great. The final product's got to be a little bit better. That's the next step for him.
Now, Kyle, on Josef and the formations, he says Joseph's injury's tough. I'd shut him down for the full year. Don't let him come back since so much is invested. And then he says,
hold on. All that type of stuff is complete speculation. So I don't even go there because nobody knows the extent of the injury yet. So no, I would not say what Kyle did if you open the knee up and you get in there for surgery and you realize, look, this isn't that bad. He could be back at full speed in 6 months. Then you don't shut him down. But nobody knows yet. So I don't even think there's any value in that speculation right now until the surgery has been conducted and you know the extent of the injury. Is it just the ACL and it's a minor tear? Well, then he could be back. Is there, meniscus or anything else going on? Well, then he's not going to be back. But nobody knows that right now, so speculating on that is a waste of time.
Now, formationally, Kyle says that he would want to play a false nine with Petey, as Toronto did with Pozuelo, for the interim. Don't know if Adam John could be the full-time guy. And he mentioned a couple of guys in league, Mason Toy, Christian Ramirez, and, of course, someone from South America is an option. Kyle says just have to weigh the long-term signing versus a stopgap player until Josef returns.
They talked about this on Extra Time, and they mentioned Christian Ramirez and Mason Toy. Ramirez would be the more attractive one for me because he's just got more experience. Toy could be more dynamic, but I don't know if Toy would want to come here and be a short-term option as a number 9 at his point in his career because he's not replacing Josef long-term. Ramirez has kind of been a number 2 striker most everywhere he's been, and he's sitting behind Mauro Manotas right now. It's an interesting opportunity for a player like Christian Ramirez, and might be willing to take it, knowing that it is a 1-year deal to be that guy, and he'd be a backup here again, or he would go elsewhere. It's an interesting opportunity, and some of that depends on what Houston's long term is with Mauro Manotas. Player in the league who has a history with Frank DeBoer is Danny Houston with San Jose. Now, double-digit goal scorer last year. It's not going to be easy to get him. He started on the weekend. But Danny Houston played for Ajax, and he's a player that Frank DeBoer spoke very highly of when he came into Ajax when Frank was the manager. So, that's one that has a relationship there and has a past history, but I don't think that's going to come cheaply. You talk about elite players in South America. One league you have to look at is Argentina because it's a league that Atlanta obviously has scouted, and it's a league that their regular season ends this upcoming weekend. That's why Gaston Jimenez is headed to Chicago after this weekend from Vélez because the Superliga season ends. Now, they have a competition after that called the Copa de la Superliga, which is like a mini league. It's like the League Cup because in Argentina you have the league play, you have the Copa Argentina, it's like the FA Cup, like the Open Cup, and you have this Copa de la Superliga, which is like the League Cup. But the way they do it, the 24 teams in the Superliga, in the first division, are divided into 2 groups of 12. So you're playing 11 games. It's a mini league. The winners play each other in a final. Those matches do count when it comes to the relegation chase. They do count when it comes to Libertadores and Sudamericana spots. That competition starts on March 15th, so it starts immediately after. That's when it's scheduled to start. Argentina's crazy with their scheduling. But you're seeing some teams that will use that competition as a way to bring in new players. We've seen a team like Tigre win this in the past, and they got relegated. They were getting relegated, but they won this tournament because others didn't really take it seriously. And when you look at what Boca Juniors, River Plate are going to be up against here coming up soon with Copa Libertadores group stage play, one, that could make them less likely to let somebody go, but it also could make it where they might cut a little bit of salary. They might let some older players go because they're going to bleed young guys in the Copa de la Superliga, and they're going to play their starters in the Copa Libertadores or Copa Sudamericana play. Now, when you look at those teams, there's a couple names that stand out from those top teams, and Carlos Tevez is one because he's having a great season right now at 36 years old. Scored 8 goals this year. He scored 5 goals in the last month. There was chatter at one point about him leaving Boca at the end of the season. That seems to have died down, and maybe it's down to the fact that he scored 5 goals in the last month. But that would be a very interesting player. I don't know if you could make the financials work. I don't know if he'd come to the United States for a lower contract number, knowing that it would be a 1-year deal and it'd be just an opportunity for chasing some trophies. Maybe, maybe not. There's 2 players with River that are former teammates of Pity Martinez, so you'd have a built-in connection there, and neither one are starting at the moment up top. Lucas Prato has not scored in the Superliga this season, 31 years old. He's played a little over 500 minutes, mostly off the bench. And the one that is interesting to me, but he's had more success this year, is Ignacio Scocco. 6 goals in 600 minutes of play. He's 34 years old. He has played in Mexico in the past. He has a little bit of time in England. Played in Greece. Came up through Newell's. Was a favorite of Tata Martino at Newell's Old Boys. At 34, and with Prato there as a backup, and Borre has been their top striker, and he's scoring a ton of goals in the Superliga. He's your guy. Would they be willing potentially to deal a Scocco or loan him for a year and know that you're going to get him back at the end of that? Maybe. So Argentina presents some really interesting possibilities in that regard because of the way their league format goes. So keep that in mind as rumors start to pop off. But look, every player who is at all linked with any kind of a move is going to get linked to Atlanta United right now. It doesn't mean there's an actual rumor. It doesn't mean there is an actual conversation happening. But everybody's going to get linked to Atlanta United right now. I mean, SiriusXM FC this morning, when the Daniel Sturridge news hit, immediately said, could he be going to Atlanta? Like, that's where this is. This is a big deal. It's going to get a lot of talk worldwide, and every striker is going to be linked to Atlanta United at the moment.
Nick Brawley on a hashtag Overreaction Monday says he drove from northern Alabama to the game. May not have been
That's
the Benz.
Shorter drive than we had.
Yeah.
Well, you're acting like he drove from North Dakota. Like, he drove less than we did.
Just impressed by the fact that Nick hit the road.
He said northern Alabama.
Northern Alabama.
That's 2 hours.
May not have been the Benz, but it sure felt like we were in Atlanta. Absolutely thrilling match all the way around. It hit every emotion in me. We had to have set a record for away game attendance.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. It's an unofficial record because nobody was counting or checking a box or voting when it came in the gate. But yeah, it's an unofficial record for sure because there's just nothing to compare it to. I thought Nashville did a great job. I thought the game day presentation was authentic to Nashville, and it worked really well. I mean, all of it. The Judah and the Lion performance, their song for the team, the Gibson guitar riff, the anthem, it was all really well done. Yeah, it was definitely emotional. If you followed the trajectory of the game in the South, that has to be an emotional moment because most people said it would never happen. Most people said Atlanta United would never happen and definitely would never happen in the way that it did. But to have 2 teams in the South playing in a match with that kind of crowd and that kind of vibe, yeah, it was a very, very special moment, and it absolutely hit me on multiple times during the night.
Okay, a couple of things from Jack Prendergast. And it's 2 separate elements, so I'm going to go one at a time. Without Josef, we need to significantly lower our expectations for this season, including CCL Supporters Shield, qualifying for CCL next year, and MLS Cup.
Not necessarily. I think you have to be more realistic, but without knowing how your dealing with a replacement right now, that would be an overreaction to me. I mean, if you're able to go get a striker who can come in and give you 15, 20 goals, why would those expectations decrease? We just don't know yet. I think CCL currently is the one that is the biggest risk of having a problem because, I mean, it's in 9 days. The first leg is in 9 days. So that's going to be really difficult, and you're probably going to have to resolve that with what you have in-house. And you could, whether it's John, whether it's Pitti as the 9. I would think in Mexico City it might be Adam John because you're going to sit back, you're going to be under more pressure, you're going to have to be more defensive. Playing with a large number 9 up top would give you the ability to do that. But, yeah, that's the one where you immediately have an effect. You know, the league and the rest of it, it's honestly too early to tell. If you're able to go get somebody, then it's a different conversation. If you're not, then, yeah, it's a different conversation for that too. So I think the people who immediately reacted to this with, well, pack it in, sell your tickets, all that nonsense, stop.
Then the second half from Jackie says then perhaps an emergency loan from a European or other quality league who isn't getting first-team minutes, a one-year deal. Some have floated Josh Sargent, but what do you think? I know they may want to wait on Josef's timetable, but you can't wait too long, a very tricky situation.
All right, let's make this clear for everybody. The timetable, you'll know when the surgery happens. That's flat out. You're not going to know in 3 months. You're going to know when the surgery happens what the timetable looks like. Now, it's a timetable. Could you be ahead of it or could you be behind it? Sure. But right now, you have no idea. You'll have that timetable roughly when the surgery happens. So that won't be that long down the road. Sargent would be an interesting one because, I mean, he's obviously talented, but he's obviously not earning time at Werder Bremen right now, and would he be better than the options you have here? I don't know. I don't know if that's a definite. I mean, you're talking about a player who has not really established himself as a first-team pro yet. Now, I know people look at it as, oh, he's a Bundesliga player, so he'd obviously come in and be better than anybody here. That's not always the case. So I lean more to this situation probably requires a veteran as opposed to a teenager who hasn't established himself yet. That might just be me looking at the big picture or just the way that I like to build a team. I think you need somebody who can step in right now and hit the ground running, not somebody who's going to need 3-4 months to get up to speed, and then you're midway through the season, you only got them for the year that they're going to play that role, so you've wasted a lot of that time. I think you're probably looking for a veteran who understands the way that this team wants to play and can slot in and contribute as quickly as possible. I don't know if Sargent can do that.
Joey Logan, using the hashtag 2020 for Josef, came up with he has a couple of different ideas formationally, and for anybody who wants to check him out in the timeline, it's at Logando_5, but he has PBR up top as an option. He's got Castro with Hosechu in the midfield, and he's also got John up top, and I think we talked about that pretty much in the first hour as ideas going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now you're two, well, we'll say three. There's three primary ways to solve it with what you have. And you might get creative and find another one. But the three for me that immediately jump out, the easiest one is Adam John replaces Josef Martinez. He's the number 9. Is he going to play it a little differently? Sure. But that's it. That's a simple replacement. Second would be Pitti Martinez moving to the number 9. Mateus Hosechu moving into Pitti's role in the attacking midfield as one of the number 10s. And you work it that way. The third would be flipping your attacking triangle to 2 up front and 1 behind and doing what you did roughly in Orlando in the Open Cup semifinal last year where Pitti and Barco both played up top and play Hosechu in behind them with 2 central midfielders behind that. It creates triangles. It could be fascinating to watch, whichever combination you go with Pitti, Barco, and Hosechu. You've got 3 players who are all talented on the ball. You've got 3 guys who can score goals. They're not a goal scorer like Josef, but with 3 players and things getting spread around, it can create some different matchups. It can create some different opportunities, some different possibilities. That's on the table too. Josetu playing as a 9, we haven't seen it. He hasn't done it in his career from what I can tell. Castro, it's the same thing. I mean, there's really not another one. If you want to get really wild and throw like a Hindman up there, there's no track record for it. You do see teams sometimes solve this problem with, lacking a number 9 with a player like that who goes into that role. You think back to Barcelona, who played Cesc Fabregas. Spain did it at times as a number 9. He's not a number 9. He's, if anything, he might be a holding midfielder, and he can play as an attacking midfielder, but he came up as a Pep Guardiola clone, as a 6 in the U.S., as that kind of role. That's why he wore number 4 for a long time, because it was that kind of deep midfield role. But they made it work with him in that role. It could be done. It would require a lot of moving parts, and it would require the team figuring that out kind of on the fly. I think in the short term, the easiest solution is Adam John, straight away. The next easiest would be Pitti as the 9. Josetu comes into that role. Then it gets more complicated from there. If you're really getting creative, if you're playing with 2 9s, but they're more like false 9s like Pitti and Barco, that's going to require a lot of understanding. If you're moving a Hindman or somebody else into that role, that's requiring a whole lot of understanding. The short-term option, I think, when you're looking at this weekend, you're looking at Mexico City, is probably Adam John as the number 9, and you are going to be exploring what's in the market. You have to. This is a team that has the expectation to win things this year. They're not giving up on that because of this injury, so they're going to look at every option to get better, and that's what will probably be starting this morning with a lot of phone calls and pulling out a lot of scouting reports that Lucy Rushton and her team have compiled and looking at guys who could be available. This is what you prepare for, because you never know when these things will happen, and you have to be ready to jump when they do. We'll see what happens. We'll see what could be available, because it's a weird time for it too, so it limits the options, and we'll see how Atlanta navigates it. Let's take a quick break here and reset for hour number 2. Tweet at us. Overreaction Monday is the hashtag. At Soccer Down Here is the destination. Send us your tweets. We'll talk about them for another hour plus, starting after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, March 2nd, Overreaction Monday. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what you're thinking with the news that broke last night. Josef Martinez has an ACL tear in his right knee. Surgery coming up very soon. Really don't know anything about timeline recovery, anything like that at the moment. You won't until after surgery. So what happens next? And do you go with what you have? Do you go add some depth? Do you go out and look for a big name? What kinds of big names can you look for? We'll keep reiterating some of the rules and clarifications that we know at this point and think are accurate at least at this point, and we'll keep you posted. But it's going to be very, very interesting on the silly season front that has been reopened because of this, and we'll see what happens. Couple bits of news real quick. Friday night, it is our first official version of the run-up over at the Brewhouse Cafe. We'll be previewing Atlanta and Cincinnati in MLS League play, the home opener. There are still a few tickets left for that. A small number. It actually could have sold out this morning. I believe there are still a very small number of tickets. If you don't have tickets for Saturday at the Benz, get them. And I've seen a lot of things posted, and most of the things that have been posted that are coming from a negative side of this are trolls looking for attention, and don't feed the trolls. I think the 17s are going to come out and be very loud and supporting this team who really needs it right now. Look, there's a lot more pressure right now on Pity Martinez. There's a lot more pressure right now on Ezequiel Barco to deliver because they know. These guys know where goals came from in the last few years, and you got to go figure out a way to replace them. Somebody's got to. If it's Adam John, if it's Pitti, if it's Barco, if it's goal scoring by committee, if it's new face number 1 or new face number 2, goals got to happen. And this team needs that support in a big way. I hope it is loud and raucous and everything is just wild at the home opener on Saturday. I don't think people are going to be giving up their tickets because of an injury. I don't think people are going to be given up because of an injury. Does it make it a lot harder? Yeah. Duh. And welcome to sports. These things happen. Welcome to supporting a team. It's easy to support a team that's winning. When it's important to support a team is when they're going through a hard time. And this is going to be a hard time. That's just a fact. You've had one of the best goal scorers in American professional soccer history in this team, and that's made things easier in a lot of ways. Well, now you've got to find a different way because the expectations don't change. This is a team that wants to win every trophy that it can in 2020, and they're going to try to find a way. And it's going to be a complicated situation for Frank de Boer because he's going to have to problem solve this on the fly. It's going to be a complicated situation for Darren Eales, for Carlos Bocanegra, because this didn't happen at the beginning of January where the window was open and you had more options. This is happening, March 2nd. And a lot of windows are closed and your options are limited. And you've got to go find something to give Frank de Boer every opportunity to field the strongest team possible. So, look, it's going to be hard. There's no getting around that. But people saying that there's no chance, that's crazy talk, y'all. That's absolute crazy talk. And just, I think y'all know at this point, you see who's saying those things, and there are reasons for people saying those things, whether they are trying to get attention, whether they have an agenda, whatever. Y'all know that. So, yeah. Welcome to social media in 2020. Focus on what's important. I think if you're a fan of this team, if you're a fan of this club, what's important is to, be ready to be loud and supportive in a huge way on Saturday. because they're going to need it. And Cincinnati looked like a team that could give up a lot of goals against the Red Bulls, but they also showed that they can find a couple too. And they're a better team than they were last year. So it's not going to be easy. Nothing's going to be easy at the moment. And this group's going to need your support. So I hope that Saturday is a night that we all kind of remember where things rally together, because it's going to be needed. We'll preview all of that on the run-up on Friday. It's at 7 o'clock at the Brewhouse Cafe. Kelly and John are your hosts, and I'll be on talking about some of the tactics. Maybe we'll have a better sense of by the time we get to that point. And the run-up is presented by Apolinski and Associates. Steve Apolinski is getting the run-up on the air now. I like it.
Yes, we are fans of that. That is good stuff and good to hear.
Yes. So make sure you are ready for Friday. Come out and hang out with us. We're going to be giving away a couple tickets to the opener, y'all. So, you need some tickets. You want to come hang out with us Friday night at the Brewhouse, 7 o'clock. We will get you ready for Atlanta and Cincinnati. We also have some high school action tomorrow night. Now, weather could make things a little tricky, but as of now, everything is a go. John, you want to tell them where we're going to be?
Ray Manus Stadium on the campus of Roswell High School for the eagerly anticipated matchup. When the regular season schedule was posted, when folks saw Parkview and Roswell, they were like, ooh, well, we will be there for the ooh with Parkview and Roswell, with the Panthers and the Hornets going at it. It is boys action, girls action, and it will be fun to see what's going on up there at Ray Manus Stadium to Roswell for Parkview and Roswell tomorrow.
Yeah, fingers crossed we don't have any storming weather. I know we're supposed to get a lot of rain over the next few days.
Boo.
So fingers crossed on that one. All right, let's get back into the timeline. We got lots of stuff to talk about. What's next?
We do, and there was a suggestion yesterday that at some point Josef should be the one to drive the Golden Spike.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I don't know, again, timeline stuff and surgery, when it's going to happen. You want it to happen as soon as possible, but you have to have swelling go down too before you can do it, so it's more effective. He might not be able to this week, but yes, I think when he is able to do it, that would be very cool, and the roof will come off the bends when he does it.
El Monteflow this morning, 2 points. Early overreaction Monday. The season's going to be difficult, but there's still plenty of quality on the team to be competitive. I'm excited to see some new faces, and ultimately, this will make us stronger.
I think it can. I think it absolutely can, because it opens up possibilities for Pity Martinez to be the man with this team, as he was at River. He was the focal point at River Plate. He delivered, carried them to a Copa Libertadores. Can he do that here? Now he's the guy that you're going to be looking at. Ezequiel Barco is going to have more opportunities to go forward and find goals, and that's something that he is growing into as he gets older, as he gets more experience. Wasn't really the idea when he came in from Independiente. He wasn't a big goal scorer at that point. He was a creator. He was a playmaker. He's turning into a pretty good goal scorer here in Atlanta. Can that progress even more? We'll find out. Adam John gets a huge opportunity, and he's probably going to get the first crack at it because he's in place. If he goes out on Saturday and finds you a couple goals, maybe creates one, maybe just is a handful up top, well, things might change in terms of that conversation. You've seen it many, many times where players have bounced around a couple clubs, maybe dropped down a division, regain their confidence, and then find the right fit. He wasn't expecting to fall into this kind of fit. It was expected that he would be the first option off the bench up top. Well, right now, he is the number one option up top. And can he make the most of that? Is he the fit to make everything work with this group? Work in a different way, but still work. There's a lot of unknowns, and we're just going to have to find out. It could open up a possibility to go bring in a player that you would not have considered before that changes the way this team plays and does make them better. It can happen. We just don't know yet. And I just can't wait to see how this gets solved, because when you look at tactics and you look at the way teams play, these are the types of situations that it kind of clears the decks a little bit. There were certain things about Atlanta United before with Josef Martinez that you knew they were going to do certain things. You knew Josef was in up top. You knew what he would bring to the table, and you played around that. Well, now you can replace that spot in a number of different ways. It might unlock things in other players that weren't there before, that couldn't be there before because of Josef and what he brings to the table. You never know. You never know how the puzzle pieces can fit and maybe actually make a better picture.
Second point from El Mataflow, as he admits he's mostly just thinking of feel-good stories. Could you see someone from the twos featured for the first team? His initial thoughts moved to Goodrum, Conway for his potential, clearly not a starter, and Lamine Janet, the dream tryouts signee.
That's the problem. I mean, you're talking about a player out of college who, has played a little bit as a number 9 in Philip Goodrum, but more of a wider player, more of an attacking midfielder. He's never played a professional match yet, officially. That's a huge ask. If you decide you need somebody for depth, maybe that becomes part of it. And Goodrum did spend most of the preseason with the first team, so that helps you a little bit. Conway's coming off an injury, so I think you're not even thinking about that just yet. You want him to get healthy. I mean, he might play some games for the academy first before he even plays for Atlanta United 2 this season, as he, I think, is just starting training or he's just started training in the last week. And, a player from the dream tryouts, you just have to wait and see. You're not going to put them straight up to the first team that quickly because there's other options that would be safer picks. So I think those guys, if you're in the twos, and the twos, home opener is this Sunday, that things have changed a little bit, and that should give you some motivation. But I think it's a much longer road to those guys fitting in and helping the first team at the moment.
Nathan Pugh, who is now hands up with 2 exclamation points, no red. He says, A, we still have plenty of talent to really challenge. Have faith, my people. And then B, I rarely choose to die on a hill. I'm dying on this hill. That should have been a red. # on par reaction Monday.
I think it should have been a red. I understand the logic that is being said by Howard Webb. I disagree with it, although I might not have all of the information because of angles that were not shown. So my biggest question would have been, where was that defender that dropped deep? I don't know if they were at the top of the 18. I don't think they could have been deeper than that. I don't know if they were 25 yards from the shot, if they were 15 yards behind Willis. If it was in that region, I don't think that defender factors in because Barco's shot is going above that. If they were deeper, if they were around the 18, maybe it's a different conversation, but don't know. And without knowing, I think you have to give the red there. That's just my feeling. It felt like a red. Sure, you can pull, language out to justify the yellow, absolutely. I think it felt like a red.
And then, Nathan, this evening at the Brew House with soccer over there, obviously we will be discussing Liverpool and Watford to a certain extent, so please let us know this evening what you thought about Liverpool and Watford. Emery Russell this morning. So many thoughts from this weekend, opening the season with a packed crowd and a win in Nashville. Couldn't seem any more perfect, but the injury to Franco and the long-term absence of Josef is definitely concerning. Is there any way I can donate my ACL to Josef? # overreaction Monday.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way, but maybe there will be a donation list. The Franco Escobar injury is one to worry about as well. Happened at the end of the first half, according to, I believe it was Fox initially. There was something that happened in pregame. At the end of the half, it didn't feel right. It was precautionary. We've not heard an update as of yet. That could come early this week. It might not come until later in the week. Lawrence White stepped in, which was a surprise. He was on a short-term contract for this match. And Lawrence White gave you a really good 45 minutes as a right center back. Very strong. Defensively, got beat once, maybe twice. Not in a way that really threatened. Good passing out of the back, some really good big switches, good athleticism from Wyke. That's a credit to the scouting department for bringing Wyke in initially, because he was an undrafted college player coming out of Furman, and Atlanta United too, and Stephen Glass and his staff for developing Wyke and preparing him to be able to step in and do that. So it was a big moment for the club in that regard. Wyke gave you a good performance. I think Wyke is showing that he can take an MLS contract and be a contributor if needed. I think he's done that. And you're talking about a player that would probably be in one of those reserve or supplemental roster spots, and it wouldn't affect the senior roster spot that's open. That I know they weren't looking at a striker before, but now you have that possibility. And it shows the big picture of when you build a team, why you don't spend every dollar you have and fill every spot you have before the season starts. Because these things can and will happen, and you have to be ready to adjust to them. There could have been something else in mind with that spot. Maybe that's changed. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe that's changed, though. And I think now you have some flexibility to at least explore different types of replacements for Josef Martinez.
Shiva this morning. Let me start by saying that there is no one that I feel terrible for beside Josef himself. He's such a warrior, and wants to fight for the city and fans and also for his country of Venezuela, and for him to miss the opportunity must be devastating. We will still have moments of joy, and I still think we'll be a top playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, Josef is missing out on getting back into the Venezuela national team, starting World Cup qualifying, Copa America this summer. Yeah, that's a huge miss for him. You know, it's for a guy who, you know, would do anything to be on the field and scoring goals and winning matches, to not be able to do that for an extended period of time. It's going to be rough. It's going to be hard for him. That's the important part. I mean, there will be players who will play. You're not going to play with 10 players every match. You're going to have an 11th player. Somebody's going to replace him. And yes, it's complicated in terms of how you do that. But Atlanta United will have opportunities to be a very good team this year. They have everything still in front of them. It's early, which helps. You have the window open, so you can go get a replacement. You do have Adam John, and you do have players within the team that can give you the ability to re-envision the way that this team plays a little bit. It's going to be really interesting to see, you know, what options are taken, what players could be available, you know, who could help solve this problem, or do you go with what you have and get really creative in solving it? I'm intrigued to see what's next. I mean, I wish we didn't have to find out, but it's going to be fascinating to see how Frank de Boer solves this.
Scott Moore this morning. I, for one, am optimistic that we will continue to be competitive and a dangerous team in MLS 2020. That being said, if we could find a new striker to gel with P&B, can we still bring home any trophies this year? Being competitive versus winning things are two different things, in my opinion.
I think it's too early to tell. I mean, yes, you can, but we don't know what is going to be done to solve it, and we don't know how it's going to look yet. So it's the complete unknown right now. But to say that there's no chance to win anything, I think that's kind of ludicrous, to be honest. Is it going to be different? Yeah. Could it be far more difficult? Yep. Because you don't have a guy that you know you can count on for 20-plus goals a season. You can, you know, put it down. And that's not happening. So now you have questions. Now you have mystery. And we just don't know what the answers are going to be to solve it yet. But to bail on it and say there's no chance at all that this team can win anything is just not accurate. It's just not accurate, because we've seen teams figure out ways before it can be done.
And then Scott also wanted to know if there were any estimates about how many Atlanta United fans were in attendance in Nashville. His rough guess was about 10,000, but he hasn't seen any numbers thrown around, and he was curious about it.
No, I don't think there will be, because there's just no way to know. I'd said 7,500 coming in. I think it was more than that. I don't know if it was 15. I don't think, I've seen some people say it was 50-50. I don't think it was 50-50. I don't think it was 60-40 Nashville. I don't know how much further I would go than 15,000 Atlanta United fans, and even that feels like a stretch. I think in terms of noise, Atlanta United fans were incredibly loud, and that's something that we typically see when one team is outnumbered. The outnumbered group is very loud to try to make up for it, and they definitely were. So that was good. But I don't think it was 50-50 or anything like that. 15 would be the high end of the estimate for me.
Jorge B. this morning. Emerson Hyndman has been playing at an exceptional level, not only scoring a golazo this weekend, but quietly becoming a force in the midfield. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Yeah, I don't even think it's quiet. I think Emerson Hyndman's been really, really good. And he's got to be that, and he's got to be consistently that. Going forward, that's the thing that's going to be different now, is you need a player like Emerson Hyndman to give you some goals like he did in this one and to be even more solid. Are you going to have to double down on possession a little bit more, potentially? Are you going to have to work your attack a little bit more to create opportunities, not just throw one in there and let Josef go try to find it? Yes, you are. You're going to have to work. And we just don't know who's going to be that replacement yet. So what you're working towards, we don't know. If it's John, you might look to get wider at times and put more crosses in, especially early, to make teams fear that. And that could open up space for Pitti and Barco. If it's Pitti, well, then you're not going to be putting in many crosses. You're going to be looking to combine and get in behind, and you're going to open the game up out wide, but you're not doing it to, pump in crosses from the flank. You're going to be looking to do it in a different way. So it depends on how you solve that. If you go get somebody else, if you go get Daniel Sturridge, he's a different player than a Carlos Tevez, than Ignacio Skoko, than a Danny Houston, than a CJ Sapong. I mean, there's all these different types of players that could be available, and we just don't know yet.
Ellen Reynolds this morning. Our first ever season opener win came at a terrible price, but I've already seen some naysayers say that we need to give up on the season, and it makes me angry. Josef wouldn't want that. Now more than ever, we need to be grateful for the versatility on our squad. We have too much talent, way too much talent, to just give up. I believe that we still can compete for trophies, even CCL, if our attack steps it up and we can continue to field a strong defense. Praying that Escobar will be available before the trip to Mexico. Hashtag on par reaction. Hashtag for Josef.
Yeah, I don't think Escobar and Robinson and Bello and even Castillo are long-term injuries at this point. Don't know how quickly any of them or all of them are back. We'll get updates this week, but in a perfect world, yeah, you're at a full strength defensively for Mexico City. The impressive thing is this team's shown that even if they're not at full strength, they can still make it work with contributions from Anton Walks, with contributions from Lawrence Wyke, Jake Mulroney. Good performance from Brooks Lennon, I thought, on the weekend, and just a steady rock in the middle in Fernando Meza. I mean, Meza is not going to be a highlight reel player, but he was really good on Saturday night, and just his calming presence is going to be really important as the pieces move around him a little bit. So you want to be good defensively, you want to be good in possession, you want to limit turnovers, and that happened a few too many times on Saturday. It's something that has to get a little bit better. And the biggest thing is just how are you going to attack? And we just don't know that answer at the moment, because that will affect what your possession is building towards. Like I said, if it's Adam John, then yeah, you've got a giant of a man as their number 9. You're probably going to want to put some crosses into him and let him go up and fight for it. But if it's Pitti Martinez in that role, then no, you're not going to be wanting to ask Pitti to be going up and win aerial duels on a regular basis. And you're also not going to be bombing it long out of the back on a regular basis and asking Pitti Martinez to fight with center backs. So however you replace Josef is going to affect the way you play, and especially the way you build up attacks. And that's what will be very interesting to see how they solve it, because it's going to have a huge impact. But I think this is a team that is adaptable enough, just in those two scenarios, not even bringing anybody from the outside yet, just in those two different scenarios, this is a team that's adaptable enough to be able to handle either one. And it's just kind of preparing for each match. This is the game plan here. This is what we're going to do. This is how we have to build it. This is how it's going to play.
Katie Weaver's back in. She says, loved going to our first away game. The number of Five Stripes taking over Nashville was crazy. Tailgates were fire emoji, and in-game atmosphere felt like a home game in our section. Hope Nashville can build on this momentum. Love the record press of goal radio calls, by the way. Hashtag Embrace Music City.
Yeah, it was a blast. I was really impressed to see how many people came up early on Friday for Dukes and Bell, for stoppage time. Tailgate Brewery was packed. It was loud. It was very cool. And then, getting a chance to go through some of the tailgates. We don't always get to do that, but getting out into Lot A and seeing folks early before all of this, it was a big deal. It was very cool. Look, Atlanta United fans are special, and to show up in those kind of numbers and travel whatever distances you did and commit to that, it was exciting. I think Nashville fans kind of know now, okay, this is what MLS can be. I think it added to the excitement level. I think it helped not just the atmosphere on Saturday night, but I think it will help long-term for Nashville and should make that fan base be very, very excited about what's to come for them. And I think Charlotte was only going to amplify that even more. So it was special from all the 17s who came up to the Music City this weekend.
JBG needed a bit of a recap here. Our MLS trade window closes May 5. What other leagues are we able to shop from in that window? And also, do you think we'll be able to get a big name replacement for Josef?
I mean, big name is going to be relative because you can't bring in a designated player. So you're going to have a limitation of what you can do here. You can't go out and just spend whatever. So you're either going to have to get somebody on a manageable salary. You're going to have to work out a Christian Pavone level kind of loan, but without the obligation/option to buy at the end of it. That would make it more justifiable for the team to make the loan in the first place. It's not easy. Yeah, it's any sport you want to follow. It's not easy because you do have a cap in place and you do have roster rules. You can't just go do whatever you want to do. There's no rule like in La Liga where Barcelona could just go add somebody outside the window and do what they want. You don't have that here. So you do have more wiggle room than the injury replacement player. You've got a senior roster spot. You've got an international slot. You can go get a very good replacement. But are you looking at somebody who's older, more experienced? Are you looking at somebody who could play a different position when Josef is back? What are you looking at here? And that's going to be what's going to guide you. I lean more, and the more I think about it, the more that I lean to a veteran who can come in to a team that is expected to win things and contribute to winning things. Not a young player who is still developing, not somebody that you're unsure of. You want to go for somebody in this role. If you're going to spend, if you're going to use that spot, if you're going to put that money out, you want to make sure that you never can guarantee a return on that investment, but you want as close to a guarantee as you can find. And I think that's going to come from a more experienced player than a young, unproven one. So we just have to wait and see what's available and what can be done.
So then Chris Hutchison says, dang, I guess we won't be going after Gareth Bale on a loan from Real Madrid then, will we?
Yeah, don't expect that one to happen. Sorry.
And Tino this morning, welcome to Silly Season 1A. So many ways this could go, but it seems like Eagles emoji, which Darren, and Carlos gave as much flexibility as possible with the remaining international roster spot in Tam and Gam. Just got to give them the space to work.
That's the key, is you've got flexibility. Your roster's not maxed out, so you have to use that injury replacement spot, and that's all you have. You have a normal roster spot, so you can go make a normal cap move. You're limited by what you have on the cap, you're limited by TAM rules if you're going to use discretionary TAM, which would mean up to 1.6, or you're limited in the allocation money you have to buy a player down under the designated player amount. And that would be, if you go past 1.6, you're talking about, over $1 million of allocation money. I don't know how much you have. I don't know how much you have beyond $1 million for sure. And again, you probably don't want to use all of it here because injuries happen, things happen. There might be opportunities that present themselves later. You want to have some wiggle room, as much as you can maintain. This is a unique situation. This is why you want wiggle room. Maybe you go for it here if the right person is there, if you feel strongly about it. Maybe you had your bets. It's a spot that you never want to be in because there is no perfect solution to it. And that's what's so difficult. But you do have a good bit of wiggle room, and this is why you have it.
Kevin from Charlotte has changed his avatar to Joseph, and now his handle is Kevin from Charlotte, Joseph Forever. I know most of the talk this morning will be about El Rey, and rightfully so, but can someone explain to me how Eric Rometty got a yellow card for a play in which he was fouled?
Yeah, I wish I knew. That was a strange one for me, too. I'm trying to think back to it, and I don't remember it really well off the top of my head. I think... No, I really don't. I couldn't tell you. I remember it being one that I was a little baffled by, but I don't remember exactly how it went down. There might have been an arm out. For some reason, I'm remembering like Rometty might have caught him with an arm, and that's what led to the yellow. The yellow felt out of place in that moment for me.
MLS Quay at Quaalude 3 was able to attend the match on Saturday. Nice to see the defense maintain their sharpness. Will be key due to Joseph being gone. I believe that we will still be competitive this year and that trophies are in play. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Trophies have to be in play. I mean, this defense, let's work backwards. So you give up a goal off a set piece here. Didn't love Joseph marking Walker Zimmerman, by the way. I was a little surprised that it wasn't Franco Escobar. That would have been the obvious one there. Could have been Anton Walks. Joseph with Zimmerman's a mismatch, and Nashville exploited it. Set piece defending always has to improve. But this team isn't a huge team either, so set pieces are going to be complicated for teams who are good on them. Nashville gets you a goal on set piece. All right. Nothing against Motagua and Kennesaw. Down there, it was a great cross and a great finish. That's from the run of play. Work backwards. Leones Negros friendly, nothing. Birmingham, nothing in the first half with starting level talent. A penalty conceded in the second, and a goal that I still think was 10 yards offside. So, and that's with second level / third level talent. Elfsborg, good cross and finish. Defense got a little out of shape early on, but it's a good cross, it's a good finish. Didn't see the other ones, and I think the only other goal that was conceded was against the Red Bulls in the first game of preseason. That's pretty good. And you haven't had Miles Robbins for all of that. You've had George Campbell play a lot of those minutes in preseason. You haven't seen him yet. You've had Lawrence White factor in at different points, and in an MLS match here you did. You've had Anton Walks go from a wing back to a center back and be effective. Fernando Meza has been a rock, and it's a good defense. And it's going to be even better when Escobar and Robinson are fully healthy. How long that's going to be? Hopefully not too long. The vibe has not been long-term for either one, but if you have that full trio of Robinson, Meza, Escobar, I don't expect them to give up a ton of goals this season. So you're going to have a chance in matches. Are you going to have as many goals scored for you? It's not likely because you're missing maybe the best pure goal scorer in the league. It's not impossible, but if you don't score as many goals, then you're going to have to be really strong defensively. And this is a unit that so far in 2020 has shown that they're capable of that.
Terrence Mannion this morning wanted a Lagos Kunga update and the possibility of bringing him back to help out in the 18.
I mean, these possibilities are there in terms of bringing, I've seen Andrew Carlton mentioned as well. Neither one are purely number 9s, so it doesn't really solve the issue. You could, but you'd be back in the same situation that they were in before. They're not guaranteed playing time, and they need to play. So I don't think it helps them. I don't think it really solves any of the problems you have. You're just adding another player for depth, and not even depth at the position you need. So I don't think those make sense. I think if you're looking at anything in terms of USL Championship for more depth, you're looking, you could be looking at Nashville and a player like Daniel Rios, who, with 3 forwards in Nashville, and Dunladi and Baji, who started. Dunladi came in next. Rios came in at the end. Rios, that was his first MLS match. Over 40 goals in the USL Championship in the last 2 years. Are they going to play him? Are they going to give him that time? If they're not, would you be interested? There are players in USL Championship that have scored a bunch of goals over the years. Cameron Lancaster was loaned from Nashville to Louisville this season. He scored a ton of goals for Louisville. Or you look in there. But I think those types of moves are more for depth. The question, if you go that way, then you think you have the replacement in-house. You're either going to go with Pitti as the 9, you're going to go with Adam John as the 9, or you're going to get even more creative with players you already have. I don't think you're going to go that direction initially. I think you're probably first going to explore who could come in from the outside. And that might take a minute to explore all those options. But I would assume that there will be phone calls made and questions asked about who could be available, and that's probably going on right now because you have to cover all your bases and see what you can do to make this team as strong as you can. I don't think Kunga and Carlton really do that yet. That would be extra depth, and I don't think it would solve any of the issues. I think it would actually hurt those players who need to play in the clubs that they're at.
John Nason, nothing to overreact to here. Coventry City are top of the league with a game in hand. Seriously. Really hope Josef can heal quickly and be back for the playoffs. Hashtag Overreaction Monday, and then including the Coventry City hashtag PUSB.
Yeah, we'll see how long good times last for Coventry because, man, they've had some bad times lately. I hope they have more good times.
Yep, and they're apparently turning profitable these days, too.
That's craziness, and hopefully continues because it was not looking that way a couple years ago.
Matt Wagner. Everyone is freaking out about Josef, but more concerning for me is Escobar's injury. Miles isn't back yet, and I feel like we're still sorting out our depth and positions in the back. What do you think? Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
It's not more concerning because there's no hint of Franco Escobar's injury being season-ending, and Josef's is. So it's not more concerning, but is it concerning? Yeah. The conversation was that it was precautionary. He played the first 45. He made a long run at the end of the half. It was a cold night. If he had anything that was tweaked coming in, could get aggravated. So he was pulled at halftime. I've seen people say, and I've had people actually send me messages saying that he was upset as he left the field. He smashed his hand on the signage board or something. People said he might have been crying. None of that means it's a long-term injury. So I think you have to wait and see here. None of the conversation has been around that. If it is, then yeah, that's a huge loss. Robinson is close, according to most comments out there, but you don't know exactly how long. You'd love to have him back for Mexico. You'd love to get him some minutes on Saturday. But none of those are expected to be season-ending like Josef's could be. Probably is. I think it's safe to say probably at this point. But you won't even know that for sure until surgery's had, so... I mean, none of it's good, and none of it is what you expect. This is a lot of different injuries all at the same time that are it's just complicated right now.
Carlos Rangel this morning wants to know, do y'all think the recent delays in visas will make the front office double think about getting a new striker from outside the league? Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Yeah, I think it has to. It definitely will affect, maybe where you're looking. And that's why, China came up, because people are expecting Chinese teams to just get rid of guys, which I don't know if that's going to be the case either. But between the visa and the virus outbreak, I don't know how soon you would be able to get that player into your team, let alone get him in to start training. So that's going to be complicated, and other players coming in from outside the league, you're not going to get them as fast as you used to. And if you make the decision that you need somebody quick, the quickest option is going to be a trade within the league. There's just no question about it, because those players have their visas and they're here, and it's just getting them to Atlanta to start training. That's it. So if you want to do something fast, you're going to make a trade within the league.
ATL UGD fan number 1 calling his shot on a hashtag no overreaction.
Oh, boy.
Going to make a 2020 prediction. Frank DeBoer will be coach of the year when Atlanta United still finds a way to be at the top of the East. You heard it here first. Hashtag unite and conquer. If
Atlanta United wins trophies this year, he should be the coach of the year, because nobody would have expected him to be able to do that without Josef Martinez. It's going to be hard. And if he gets through that and wins trophies, or wins the Eastern Conference regular season, or gets the MLS Cup, or wins MLS Cup, or wins the Open Cup, or gets to a CONCACAF final, any of those things, yeah, he should be mentioned. He absolutely should be, because it's going to be an incredible coaching job. It's just not going to be easy. Now you're going to have to either incorporate a new player who can replace Josef and is probably a similar style player, which is difficult, or you're going to have to get creative in replacing Josef with a different kind of player or a different style of playing, and that's a credit to coaching. So it's going to be difficult, and if this team accomplishes things in 2020, absolutely he should be part of that.
He says Barco and PT will step up, and I fully believe we will still be fine this season. I'm disappointed for Josef, but no way am I throwing in the towel on our 2020 season. I know we'll be good. I'll be first in the building on Saturday. Hashtag LFG.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it's silly to throw in the towel on it. As I've said, is it harder now? Yeah. There's just no way around that. It will be a harder season because you are missing a guy who is a sure thing in this league. However you replace him, it's not a sure thing. So it's a much harder road to success now. Doesn't mean you don't navigate that road and get to success.
The Colonel is in this morning. Morning, Colonel.
Hola.
7 East versus West matches this past weekend. The West was 4-1-2 with 5 home matches. From the East, only Atlanta and Toronto got points on the road. Early returns are the West look strong. Colorado, Dallas, KC, and Minnesota answered questions. Hashtag overreaction Monday.
It's 1 week, so very early returns. The fact that the West had more home games too factors in. We'll run through them really fast, just run through the MLS results from the weekend. We'll talk about this more tomorrow, but DC faded down the stretch badly, and Colorado got a deserved win at Audi Field. Montreal 2-1 over New England. That was a surprise to me with the injury issues Montreal's dealing with. Houston and the Galaxy 1-1. Great goal from Pavone. Houston, I think, maybe made a little bit of a statement. Toronto going out to San Jose should have put the game away. They should have won it. San Jose with an incredible free kick deep in stoppage time to get a point. But Toronto should have won that. And Toronto's missing pieces right now, too. Michael Bradley, we know about Pablo Piatti injured as well. It's not a full-strength Toronto squad. Dallas beating Philadelphia. Dallas was at home. That's the expected result there. Orlando scoreless draw with RSL. I didn't really get to see much of it. And when I saw it was scoreless, I didn't go racing to the highlights.
No.
Atlanta, Nashville, we've talked about. Sporting 3-1 over Vancouver. That was expected to me. I don't really know what to think of Vancouver right now, and Sporting is a top team in my mind. Columbus over NYC 1-0, expected because NYC had a red card 2 minutes into the match. So the Crew, honestly, I was a little surprised it took that long for them to break through. Red Bulls beating Cincinnati 3-2. I'll give Cincinnati credit for fighting and making it interesting, but it sounds like the first part of the match they really struggled, and the left side was getting lit up. New York was just killing them down the right. Seattle 2-1 over Chicago. That's the expected result, maybe by a wider margin. Chicago made it pretty difficult for Seattle, but they wilted down the stretch. LAFC beating Miami, absolutely expected. Miami made it far more difficult than people expected, though. And Miami had some opportunities there. LAFC probably should have found at least another goal, maybe two more. And Minnesota beating Portland, that's maybe the biggest result of the weekend. Portland did not look great, and the Loons looked pretty good. Portland has to be a contender this year. If they are not, the seat is going to get very warm under Giovanni Savarese, who I think is a very good manager. This is an older team. I don't think the window closes in MLS like it does in other sports, but for this group, this era of the Timbers, they got to win now. And if they don't, they probably need to look at changing lots of different things, and potentially the manager included. So that's a huge result for Minnesota, and I think that stamps Minnesota as a team you got to pay attention to out west. So I'm not going to go to say the West is stronger than the East by a large margin yet. It's so early, and I mean, two of the matches, it's Seattle and LAFC hosting Chicago and Miami. That skews it a bit. Those are, obvious stronger Western Conference teams and weaker Eastern Conference teams. But we'll see how it shakes out. There were definitely some interesting storylines in Week 1. The biggest one for me is Minnesota winning handily in Portland.
Anthony Neitzel back to Atlanta United says, John is not the answer, period.
Okay, that's a bold statement to make. Sure, that's the opinion. I disagree. John's different. He's a big target number 9 who, no, I don't think he's going to score 20 goals. But could he help facilitate opening up space for Pitti, for Barco in two different ways? Yeah. He becomes a threat on crosses, obviously. I mean, size, duh. That's just an easy one, which is going to open the game up because that's going to make teams have to respect Brooks Lennon, Jake Mulroney, George Bello, whoever's on the left putting crosses in. That's going to spread them out. That's going to open up possibilities for Pitti and Barco and Josetu and Heinemann through the middle. Also, you're going to be able to play direct to Adam John, and he's going to be able to win balls out of the back, long play out of the back, and knock it down to Pitti or Barco or Josetu or Heinemann, or play it out wide to Lennon and Mulroney and open the game up. So he has definite qualities that can help this team play well. Is he a starting number 9 in this league? That's been a question for a while. We don't know. Is he Josef Martinez? No, he's not. He's a very different kind of player, but it doesn't mean he can't be impactful for this. So I think just ruling it out, you're limiting your options when you do that. So I think you have to consider it at least in the short term, because look, the easiest thing right now against Cincinnati, and especially in Mexico City, where you are going to be under pressure and you are going to be more defensive, play with a big number 9 who can hold the play up. And he's been here, and he's trained with this team, and he's played minutes with this team. So right now, he's the easiest option to make the replacement. Long term, you might make the decision you want more, but in the short term, yeah, he's going to be important, and he's going to play.
Jill Robbins, the Soccer for Good OG, is in this morning. The Atlanta United season is not over. Our front office is smart. Our team is talented. Our coach is more than competent. Josef will be back, parenthesis 2021. 2020 started with a win. At MLS opening weekend did not disappoint. I chose to be optimistic. Hashtag Team Sunshine Pumpers. Hashtag On Par Reaction Monday.
You just don't know. I mean, it's a lot of unknown right now, and the unknown can be scary. I totally get it. But you don't know how Josef Martinez is going to be replaced right now. So it's a little early to throw everything out without knowing what the next step is going to be.
Let's see. Katie Weaver. What does this all mean for Barco's future? Big summer sale seemed a possibility with reinforcements in Josetu Castro and dumb with a question mark. But now the club may need him or need the money. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Don't think they need the money. That's something this front office has been pretty clear in saying from day one. They're not going to make moves. It was actually reiterated on stoppage time on Friday. You're not going to make moves just because of money, period. This isn't a selling club that just has to sell players to balance the books. So toss that part to the side. You're not also needing it to go get other replacements. That's not really the issue here. Barco is a player that you're going to be asking a lot of in the first part of the season. That can have two different effects. I mean, one, he can be very good for you, and that's going to get people's attention. And when he gets people's attention, he's already on the radar of a lot of clubs. That could lead to offers coming in the summer. And that could lead to some tough decisions. And some of that's going to be determined by where you are, what other options you have in terms of a replacement straight away. Could be where a player like Manuel Castro gets a loan extended or gets his contract purchased if he's the right fit. You always want to have short, mid, and long-term options. Eventually Ezequiel Barco is going to bring in a transfer fee and he will depart. It would have been easier with Josef Martinez and this team to do that in the summer. Still wouldn't have been easy, but it would have been easier. Now it might be more difficult, but we don't know what the short-term replacement is for Josef. We also don't know what kind of offers are going to come in the summer. If the right offer, the right club comes, and it's the move that the player wants, and Atlanta United can make a move to replace or already have the replacement in-house, I think they still do it. If the season has gotten away from them at that point, then I think it's easier to do it. If you're competing for Supporter Shield, if you're competing for a top spot in MLS, if you're looking like an MLS Cup winning kind of team, then maybe you're going to need an even bigger offer to do it in the summer, or you're going to be looking at an opportunity to keep them for the rest of the year and then move them at the end of the year. I think the player that this is going to impact the most is Pity Martinez, because I think right now, as the team's currently constructed, that's who you're looking to pick up a lot of the slack. And if he does, and he has in his career in the past, well, I mean, he's made it clear too. He would love that opportunity to go to Europe. If he does well here, and I think it would be for the full year, I don't think that would happen in the summer for him, he's going to have an opportunity to go. And he has a big opportunity in front of him, I think, to answer critics. And these critics were there before he came to Atlanta. Don't get it twisted. These critics were there at River, like, he's not good enough to go to Europe. He's a great player here, but he's not a European player. And that's why he hasn't gone yet. He comes here, and he leads this team to glory with Josef Martinez injured when everybody said that was impossible. He's going to get some nice opportunities from bigger clubs. And as a player, as a teammate, you're not hoping for these things to happen, but sometimes things fall into your lap, and he can better his career because of it. And if he takes advantage of that opportunity, it could have the most impact on Pity Martinez's future. I really think that could happen. Barco, I think the timing for a potential sale could be impacted by this, and it could make it trickier to do, but I don't think it's going to prevent it from happening if the right move is there and the right deal is there.
The Colonel is surprised at the season over crowd. With the Josef injury, Atlanta doesn't play a man down. There's still 11 on the pitch, and there's a lot of talent. He's looking forward to seeing Adam John excel on an Overreaction Monday.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I don't like it. I don't agree with it, and I do, as I said. I think there are some people who are going down that road who are trying to stir the pot and get reactions from people because that's what they do. But there are people who are legitimately scared and think the season's over. I get it. And I don't think it's the case. I don't think that should be the mentality with this group. Has the season gotten more difficult? Yes, 100%. But until we know what's going to happen in terms of replacement, and there are lots of options on the table as we've laid out. You got players in this league. You got players in Argentina that you might be able to get with their season ending. You've got players all over the world because the window's open, but varying stages of willingness to sell and the types of players you're looking for. Without knowing what's going to happen next, it's way too early to say, like, oh, it's over, forget it.
Malpinjo this morning is in. The players people are suggesting seem to be pretty well known, ex-EPL forwards. However, we've seen that our front office has been scouting in South America, Castro, Meza, Husetsu, and I would expect to look that way, which is mainly an unknown list of possible players to us.
Yeah, and that's what usually happens, right? It's usually somebody that, oh, big name, big name, big name, big name. No, that's not who you get. You go get somebody else because there's a lot of leagues in the world. And, I mean, I watch a good bit of the Argentine league, but I don't know the Argentine league inside and out. I don't know it like I know MLS. So I can tell you a few names. There's a few. There's a few veterans, and we mentioned two from River. We mentioned Carlos Tevez, which would be a wild kind of addition, but I think he's settled into his time at Boca, and he's going to be fine there. Man, if you could pull that one off, you're talking about an established veteran that I think would score a ton of goals in this league. There's others. I mean, Pulga Rodriguez at Colón. He led Colón to a Copa Sudamericana final at the end of 2019, and he's been productive, both scoring goals and creating for others as a number 9. That would be an interesting one. You're talking about guys who are in their mid-30s who would be a player who would know what the job is. They're going to be coming in 1 year, a mercenary kind of move to come in and help this team reach its goals. And they know that long-term, Josef Martinez is the guy. He's going to come back and take that spot. But, man, that opens up some interesting possibilities. That's just in Argentina. That's not getting into other countries in South America where Atlanta United scouts and has pulled talent from before. I think this move, you're looking at different talent because I do think you're looking at experienced veteran talent if you do that, because you don't want to bring in somebody that you just wonder if they're going to fit. You want somebody that you have more of a track record that you know they're going to fit because you need it to work. If you want to win everything this year, you need to bring somebody in straight away who can be successful. So could you do that within the league? Absolutely. Danny Houston's a player that has played for Frank de Boer before. CJ Zapong is a player who has scored double-digit goals in this league. You've got guys. You look at pretty much every team in the league, and you look at the depth chart, and you look at strikers or teams that have multiple strikers and what they could potentially have available. CJ Zapong didn't make the 18. There's 2 in Colorado with Diego Rubio, Nicky Jackson, guys who have played in this league. Jordan Hamilton, Fernando Adi, which is one you're probably going to stay away from, like you're going to stay away from Darren Maddox. FC Dallas, you've got young talent, probably not what you're looking for. Christian Ramirez, we mentioned. He would actually be a really interesting possibility. Bradley Wright Phillips' name has come up. I don't think LAFC would move him, and he's injured anyway right now, so I don't know if he solves any issues. Miami doesn't really have anybody that would make sense because I don't think they'd move Agudelo yet. Mason Toy has a little bit of history in MLS, but not a ton. A little more of an unknown. Anthony Jackson Hamel in Montreal is a player who's looked good in small bursts, but has never had an extended run out. And that's, a question as to why, but could he be somebody that fits that? New England added Adam Buxa in the offseason. They have Gustavo Bo. Carlos Heel is injured. Would they potentially be willing to move a player like Teal Bunbury, who is a hardworking player, is usually good for around 10 goals in this league? Could that be more in an Atlanta United system? Don't know. Could you pull off a wild move with NYC and get a Valentin Castellanos? I mean, he's a backup there. He's going to find playing time there, but they don't really have a lot of depth behind that, so I think it's not likely. Red Bulls players are all young. Orlando City, you would think about a player potentially like Tesho Akindele, but he's a guy that Oscar Pareja scouted in college and drafted and then has followed him everywhere. And this time he was already in Orlando before Pareja took the job. I don't think he'd move him because I think he's one of Pareja's guys. Philadelphia, Shabilko's the guy, but Sergio Santos, Andrew Wooten are there as potential possibilities. I don't look at Jeremy Abobasi as a guy that would move from Portland, but what about a Tomas Konechny, who's sitting deeper on that depth chart, and he's a player who fits some of the role in terms of dropping in deeper, can connect. He's a good passer. He's actually a good playmaker as a forward. He'd be an interesting one to consider. I don't think RSL has anybody that fits the bill. We talked about Houston in San Jose. A lot of people have mentioned Chris Wondolowski. I don't think he leaves San Jose in his last season. I think he's Quakes for life. Just don't see it. Houston would be more likely to go, but it's also going to be a higher price you'd have to pay. Could you make that work? He's not a designated player. He's a high non-allocation money buying down guy. I think last year his number was around $540,000. So it's potentially possible for a guy like Danny Houston. Patrick Mullins is a reserve in Toronto. He's bounced around the league. He's another player who's technical, can bring others into the game, potentially the kind of player that you'd be looking for. Freddie Montero in Vancouver. His role's a little bit different now with Lucas Cavallini in place. Could Montero, because they have Toussaint Ricketts as well, could Montero be a guy you look at? Actually a pretty intriguing possibility when you think about it. That's all within the league. So you've got actually quite a few different guys that could be interesting to explore in MLS. You've got South America, specifically the Argentine League because of their scheduling, and you've got guys like Daniel Sturridge that pop up, and there could be more of them in Europe. So there's a lot of different ways to solve this problem.
Kurt McGirt wanted to know about a move to bring Brandon Vasquez back.
See, I don't think you're going to go to Vasquez or Romario Williams because you already made the decision to not have them. I think for a Vasquez, and hey, he started for Cincinnati actually, so I don't know if they'd be willing to part, but that would feel like more of a last resort move. Or if you feel like you've got what you need in-house and you need to add more depth, just because you know him and he's been here and he understands, I think, what Frank DeBoer wants. I don't think that's your first option or your second. That's more of a depth or we couldn't find anything else option to me. And it's not a knock on Brandon Vasquez's game. It's just you already made the decision that he was expendable.
Chris Ashley says he'd be up for a loan deal to bring in Kamar Roof from Anderlecht. He was great at Leeds and hasn't been able to break into the Belgian side.
And the Belgian league is an interesting one in terms of the way I think their playoff structure works, because this came up with Pozuelo last year. I'm going to see if I can figure this out real quick, because Pozuelo ended up coming at the end of March for Toronto last year, and there was a lot of back and forth that they wanted to keep him through the playoffs because they have a playoff structure. So they have 2 more weeks in their season, this Saturday and then the following Sunday. Their regular season ends on the 15th in Belgium. I don't know how the playoffs work. It looks like, man, what kind of playoff system do they do? I think maybe the top 6 go to the playoffs. And what club are we talking about at the moment?
Anderlecht.
Anderlecht. It's actually an 8th. If they miss the playoffs, yeah, you'd be at the season would be over. So that things could get really interesting there. That's another one. I mean, there's guys like this. Again, guys that you don't really know, you don't really follow unless you follow the Belgian league, unless it's a player that you've come across before. Yeah, Belgium's another league you might want to consider because of that. Anderlecht's a team that you're not usually looking at as missing the playoffs, but Anderlecht and Genk right now are on the outside looking in of the championship round of the Belgian playoffs. Let me see if I can figure out this format real fast because it's weird. Okay, the point system in the championship playoff is the same as during the regular season, except that each team starts with half of the points they won in the regular season, rounded up to the nearest integer. The points gained by rounding are deducted in the case of a tie. The top 6 teams from the regular season enter the championship playoff, with the first place team winning the championship of Belgium. Each team plays their opponents twice, and the teams are ranked by points from rounding, wins, etc., as in the regular season. There is a Europa League playoff, so there would be more games for an Anderlecht or a Genk. The teams ranked 7 to 14 after the regular season enter the playoffs too, with it's like a second version of the playoffs, with the teams ranked 7th, 9th, 12th, and 14th entering the Group A, and 8th, 10th, 11th, and 13th entering the Group B. Don't ever tell me the MLS playoffs are too complicated, folks. Don't ever give me that anymore. This is Belgium, and this is nonsense. The Europa League playoff, you play each team in your group twice, and then the winner of each group plays the final game in 2 legs. The winner of that playoff plays a home and away against either the 4th or 5th place team from the championship playoff for the final Europa League ticket.
Good Lord.
So there will be more games for an Anderlecht or anybody else in Belgium if you're looking at other Belgian rosters, but their regular season does end in 2 weeks. Maybe they would be more willing to make a move because of that than some other European teams. It happened with Pozuelo last year. They got him at the end of the regular season. He did not play the playoffs in Belgium. So keep that in mind and don't get a headache trying to figure out Belgium's playoff structure because it's beyond stupid.
John Nason with the $1 million question, or I guess the allocation money question. Thinking a trade within the league would command a hefty premium due to the reason. Are the front office willing to pay that for a rental?
I don't know who it is, so I can't answer that. There's no way to know. There's no way to know what the price tag would be. You can demand a healthy premium and then not get your trade, and then you're sitting on the player that might be sitting on your bench. So that happens. You could try to ask too big of a price and negotiate it down and find a number. But the benefits of it are that player could be on a plane and be in training the next day. And you're not going to find that anywhere else. So it depends on where you feel you are, and it depends on where you feel you need. But if you want to avoid visa issues, if you want to avoid negotiating with foreign clubs and how long that can drag on and when they're going to release a player and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, a trade within the league is the fastest option. Could it be pricey? Yeah, could be. But you have brought in some allocation money to work with, so you might have the means to do it.
Allison Cupertino this morning. Josef expects excellence out of himself and out of his teammates. If nothing else, I imagine these guys are going to come out of the gate strong for Josef, so premature to count us out. It can be extra motivation just as easily as it could be defeatist. Choose the motivation.
Yes. He's going to come back a house of fire. I mean, that's just the biggest thing here is that he's going to come back with every chip on his shoulder and be as strong as possible. We got a little bit of this. So, BBC Merseyside Sport tweeted, former Liverpool striker Daniel Sturridge has been suspended from all football and football-related activity from today until the end of June 17th, 2020. Sturridge has also been fined £150,000. FIFA has confirmed that the suspension will be of worldwide effect. So, yeah, you can throw that one out. I know there's a lot of talk about Daniel Sturridge this morning. We wasted a lot of tweets. Read more on the story that former LFC striker Daniel Sturridge has been banned from all football-related activity for 4 months for breaching betting rules.
Oh.
There had also been something with Sturridge earlier in his career about providing inside information on a transfer to his brother or something. I guess it helped his brother make some money through something or other. So
insider trading?
It's kind of. 6-week ban last summer, 4 of them suspended, but the FA appealed against the findings of an independent commission. The appeal board also doubled the 30-year-old's fine to £150,000. It was announced on Monday that Sturridge's contract with Turkish side Trabzonspor has been terminated by mutual agreement. So, yeah, he's not coming to Atlanta. Leave that one out. I didn't think he was coming anyway. I didn't think he fit. The injury history was a huge concern, but now he's definitely not coming.
Nathan Pugh back this morning. He says, what's important is to be loud and enjoy the day out with a bevy in the conversations throughout the weeks during the season. Doom and gloom be gone.
Yeah, it's just a different conversation. I mean, it could be a really, really interesting conversation because now you're in just the great unknown. There has not been a question about who would be the starter up top for Atlanta United since ever. Since maybe the game in Chattanooga in preseason in 2017, when it became obvious that Josef Martinez was a ridiculous talent. Since game 1 of MLS, if he's healthy, he's the guy. No question. Well, now, the first time you have a question. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that is solved. I'm excited about the possibilities of it. I'm not excited to miss Josef for this period of time. I'm not excited about how difficult that's going to be to replace him, but I'm excited about the conversation of how you try to figure out replacing him and what you do in this potential transfer market that has now become open for you in some ways, and what moves could be on the table and how you solve this problem. That's what soccer is. It's a game of problem solving, and this is a game that Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra are playing right now, and how they solve it is going to be fascinating.
KFC back in, not willing to have a total hashtag overreaction Monday, calling this victory Pyrrhic in nature. It all depends on the battles ahead. Heinemann sights are already on the up for 2020. Could clearly see the AR flag even from the 300s, but glad Barco played on. Get well, Joseph.
Yeah. Man, oh, wait a minute. How did the KFC say Barco play? Oh, yeah, the Barco put the cross in. Sorry, I was mixing up the 2 goals for a second. The offside flag, everybody gets bent out of shape by the offside flag. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez always got bent out of shape by the offside flag going up or not going up. And the flag's meaningless. It's just a signal to the referee. The whistle's what matters. This moment is why you want the flag to stay down. Go up at the very end of the play, or buzz, or whatever you want to do to get the referee's attention. And if VAR needs to look at it, then they can look at it and they make a decision. Done. When the flag goes up, for whatever reason, it freaks players out, and they stop, and they shouldn't, and they know better, and they've always known better because it's been the same since they were kids. But it always creates hesitation, and for Nashville, yeah, they can complain about it. It didn't stop play. That was on them. But, yeah, they can complain about it. It shouldn't have gone up. The flag shouldn't have gone up. But it did, and Nashville reacted to it, and that's on them. That's their fault. And Barco just did what Barco does, and Emerson Heinemann, whew, what a finish.
And I think that both Heinemann and Vela, not surprisingly, are up for currently goal of the week. So go over to MLSsoccer.com and do what you do, 17.
Yes,
do that. Mr. Green, not sure if it's been asked or tossed around the proverbial water cooler yet, but could Mateus Husetu play the 9 in Josef's absence? His finish in the box on the preseason game winner still replaying in my head.
We haven't seen it, so, I mean, it would be more outside the box than Pity Martinez playing there in my mind. But is it possible? Yeah, I think anything's possible at this point. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think it would probably be easier, at least to start with, if you decide that, all right, you want to double down on possession, you want to double down on technical players, and you move Pity Martinez to the 9. Mateus Husetu comes into that role, and it's Husetu and Barco behind Pity with everything else the same. that would be the easier first option, and maybe it grows into a situation where it's just fluid with those three. Barco steps up higher sometimes, and Josetu's a more of a solo 10, or Josetu goes up there and Pitti drops deeper. That's just going to take some time, and that's just going to be chemistry. It could just end up being where those three are incredibly fluid, and you don't know who the number 9 is going to be. And that's nightmarish for defenses, because you've got three talented players who can all score from distance, who can all dribble past you, and who can all lay a ball on for somebody else to score, splitting lines. That's terrifying. It's very different, and it's very difficult to get the chemistry right, but it's very terrifying when it's on, because center backs are stuck. Because you can't just go follow those guys all over the field, or then you don't have a back line, because you got guys chasing Barco all the way out of the wing and all the way back to the midway line, and that could be a wild, wild solution to it that would be a lot of fun to watch, and we've seen top teams do these things before. You know, the Lionel Messi false 9. Go back and look at, I think it was Pep's first win at Madrid in his first season at Barcelona, where he unleashed the Messi false 9. The first time Pep did it. I think Messi had done it once or twice before under Rijkaard at Barca. And, you know, the Real Madrid backlines talked about it later. You don't know if you should go drop into midfield with that guy, if you should go and step all the way out with him, because center backs don't want to do that. But if you don't, then they're just going to be running at you. Pep doubled down on that at times and would play, Fabregas as a 9, and he's not a true 9. He's a midfielder. I'd play Messi there. He'd play Messi and Fabregas there. I mean, at times it'd just be, I think the game against Santos in the Club World Cup final that a lot of people point at as one of Barca's best games of this era, the formation was determined as a 3-7-0. and I mean, Santos guys are like, they created a new way of playing. We didn't even know what was going on. Like, it didn't make any sense. But it's just pass, rotate. Oh, somebody else pops up here. Somebody else pops up there. Somebody else pops up here. It's hard. It's hard to do, because that takes time to build, and it takes understanding to build. But, man, it's tough to defend when it's on. It's also tough to be against a team like a Club America that is going to have a good bit of the ball, and is going to put you under a lot of pressure, because you don't have an outlet to just bomb it long and reset. You don't have a number 9, or you don't have a big number 9 who can go up and fight for that. I'm not asking Pitti Martinez to be battling center backs for aerial balls, for long balls. No, you're wasting his energy or wasting his physicality. You don't want him doing that. So you're going to be giving the ball away in those moments. You've got to double down on building out of the back, under pressure, through traffic, and just have the confidence to do it. And that's not something that happens overnight. So this problem solving is going to be a lot of fun to watch. It is. And it's not going to be easy. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. Josetu could be one of those options as a number 9. We just haven't seen it yet. I think Pitti's somebody we've seen as a forward. And we did see last year the game with Barco and Pitti as the two number 9s in a 3-5-2. That was very different. And that was a game that, did it take a little bit of time for things to kind of truly settle? Yes, I think that's fair. But that was a game where in a 3-5-2, backline was LGP, Robinson, Escobar. It doesn't really matter. It was Gressel and Merrim as the wingbacks. Nagbe and Remedi as your two holding midfielders. Hindman was your 10 behind Pitti and Barco. Hindman got the second goal in the match. Remedi opened the scoring when he ran forward because of the space that's created by two forwards who want to drop deep. Can you play a season like that? I don't know. Are there some opponents that you could go with that type of setup? Absolutely. Could you do that every match? That might be tough. And that's why an Adam John is very important, because he gives you something completely different. And ultimately, I think that's what we're going to see more of. Is some games it's going to look traditional, number 9, there you go. Unless you go out and get a straight-up replacement, and then that's a different conversation. But if you go with what you have, you're going to see some games with John as a number 9, and it's going to look traditional. And you're going to see some games with Pitti or Barco or Josetu as a number 9, or 2 of them as a number 9 and 1 as a number 10, and it's going to look very different and very fluid and lots of passes, lots of combination play. Some opponents, that will be the way to break them down. Others, it won't work. It's going to be a little bit of mix and match unless you just go get a straight-up replacement and slot somebody in to be the regular starter in place of Josef Martinez.
Props to everybody who's been having conversations on the timeline this morning. I know a lot of that has drifted about conversations about dog show and the red and fouls and Josef and all that kind of stuff. Jim Lepp has been a big part of that this morning. So props to everybody who's been having conversations and sharing your opinions with other SDHers this morning. But the last tweet on the board lends us to tomorrow. James McClatchy says he watched some of Sounders fire LAFC and Inter Miami, as well as Nashville and Atlanta. Nashville, Chicago, Miami looked better than I expected. Also just thought the overall level of play in the league has improved. It's going to be a great season.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun season. Getting a chance to watch some games on Saturday before things started in Nashville, listen to some driving back yesterday, watch the games last night. There's so many different storylines. If anything, Atlanta United now being at least a contender with a question mark next to it, which is fair, opens up even more possibilities. Because I've looked at them, and I think everybody except for Charlie Davies had them as 1 or 2 in the Eastern Conference. Charlie had them 5th, and he said after this he puts them at 7th and fighting to get in the playoffs. I disagree strongly, but that's okay. Everybody else had them 1 or 2, or had them as a title winner, or a runner-up, or an Eastern Conference champion, and now that throws that into flux. I don't know who takes their place in that conversation, and that's the harder part when you look at MLS and the Eastern Conference right now. I don't know if there's just an obvious, this team will step up instead. The Red Bulls got to win. The Red Bulls play, 8 of the next 10 on the road? That's going to be difficult to deal with. Montreal's got a bunch of injuries. They got to win. Can they keep doing that? And they've got CONCACAF coming up. Columbus got to win, and Columbus is a team that maybe does take advantage of that. New England lost in Montreal, and you got to wonder what's going on. And Carlos Heal's injury, you got to wonder. DC lost to Colorado at home and didn't look good in it either. So that's a question. New York City lost, but that happens with a red card so early. That's not shocking. Philadelphia lost in Dallas. That's not completely shocking. Toronto got a draw, and they maybe should have gotten a win there, but it's on the road in San Jose, so a point, not completely shocking. I think the Eastern Conference is just maybe a little more open now with this injury for Atlanta, and Columbus has to be excited about it. New England gets a reprieve after a bad week 1. It's going to be more competitive, but just across the board, there's a lot of really intriguing teams this season. I think we're going to have a lot of fun following and talking about MLS all year long.
Note from friend of the show, Glenn Crooks, before we go. NYCFC has announced the permanent acquisition of Uruguayan midfielder Nicolas Acevedo from Uruguayan side Liverpool FC using allocation money. He's a 5'8" defensive midfielder.
Well, he's a little bit more than just a 5'8" defensive midfielder. That is a big one because he's a talented player. He's a player who was getting a lot of European interest. So it's a good get for a team that's already good. So NYC just strengthening even more. We'll see what Atlanta does because the market's open now and they have a need, and they have a need up top that they didn't expect to have. So do they go get an established veteran? Do they go get somebody on loan who needs minutes? Do they go get somebody within the league? They will not be going to get Daniel Sturridge unless they're going to argue with FIFA about his suspension due to gambling-related activities. Don't know. And we will start to find out as the week goes on. So it's going to be an interesting week here on SDH. From a programming standpoint, here's what we got coming up. Soccer over there tonight, 6 o'clock, and anything transfer-related because European markets are paying attention now that Atlanta has an opening for a striker, and Atlanta's a team that gets mentioned a lot anyway. Well, now they're going to get mentioned to everything. Could come up on Soccer Over There for sure this evening, 6 to 8 at the Brewhouse Cafe if you want to come hang out with us. If not, you can listen on the app and on Spreaker and on soccerdownhere.net. Normal show tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Tomorrow, late afternoon, early evening, it will be high school soccer, game of the week action, Parkview at Roswell. Weather permitting, fingers crossed, but that is a possibility with this week not looking like a great one weather-wise in the metro Atlanta area. Normal shows the rest of the week. Friday night, though, make a point to come out and see us at the Brewhouse Cafe. You can win 2 tickets to Atlanta and Cincinnati. You can hang out with John and Kelly, your hosts of the Run-Up, and that show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates. You can still get in on the Fantasy League as well. Make sure you're following Jason Wright, AGEN, Jason Wright Agency on Facebook. He is our commissioner. My team stunk this week, and part of it is because of the injury to my captain, Josef Martinez. But yes, my team stunk. I have a lot of work to do. I think John actually had a decent week.
Well, he did until Jason Wright came in with all of his backloaded starters.
League. I was just talking in general, John.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like I said, had a front loaded bunch.
It doesn't matter.
And
I
captained Joseph as well, and did not have the week that I was anticipating.
Yes, but we're not talking about what other people did. We're talking about the Open League, just in general about fantasy. Not talking about matchups. You're in the Pro Rel League somehow. I think that probably needs to be investigated.
Yeah,
but
really?
You're in the Pro Rel League, and that part is different. I was just talking in general. Your fantasy week, it was pretty decent. It's not about front-loaded or whatever. It's just pretty decent. Be happy.
You're far more optimistic about it than I was.
I don't even understand what you're talking about. You had a point total. It was pretty good. There's nothing about being optimistic.
I'm in the Pro Rel League.
You lost because it's head-to-head.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. What did you score? I'm going to look at the league real quick. We'll get into this later.
I'm a 19th in the league right now.
That's the Pro Rel League because you lost. I'm talking about the Open League, just your general production for the week. It was pretty good. I was trying to give you a compliment.
I was 58th.
It's better than me. I stunk. You had 51 points. Jeez.
Yeah. 58th out of 86.
That's pretty decent. Never mind. Next time I'll find something to laugh at with your team. My team stunk.
Oh, where were you? Where did you finish?
81st.
Wow.
They stunk.
Did not know that.
They stunk. Joseph got hurt. What else did I have last week?
Diaz, Zardes, PT.
Rui Diaz didn't do anything. Zardes didn't do anything. Pitti didn't get any points. Pizarro didn't get any points. Maxi Morales didn't get any points. Pozuelo did okay. Metanair didn't do anything. Tennerholm didn't do anything. Harrison Offel did all right. Matt Turner went and stunk it up in Montreal. So, yes, my team stunk. All the way around, stunk. That's okay. It's 1 week. Stunk.
All right. Well, I'm already changing my roster, getting ready for next week.
Yes, because you should change it every week because that's kind of the point of the game. But anyway, we'll talk about that as the week goes on. I will try not to stink so much next week in fantasy, and I guess John won't either, even though I was trying to help brother out, but
Nah.
Okay, John's going to stink next week. How about that? Is that
there
better?
you go. There you go. That's a lot better, actually.
Maybe you'll get suspended like Daniel Sturridge did.
Yeah, I'll put Sturridge and Carlos Gruezo on my roster, and I'll feel better.
Yes, do that. All right, we're out. There will be plenty more to discuss this week. We'll have plenty of content for you. Thank you, everybody, for listening and being part of the conversation this morning. And thanks for not freaking out too much. I thought it was going to be a much scarier show. It was not that bad. I get it. I understand. I mean, I was definitely worried about it leaving on Saturday night and was hoping against hope that it wouldn't be that bad. It would be a tweak. It would have been a sprain. You know, you're looking at the replay and it's like, it doesn't look that bad. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And it's not. And this is a team that counts on Josef Martinez in a huge way. And we all know that. And for Josef, you hate it because he was looking to get into the Venezuelan national team again with their coaching change. Things were looking promising there. We know how much that means to him. You had a Copa America this summer. That would have been a huge opportunity, not even to get into World Cup qualifiers. And just the chip on his shoulder from not winning MLS Cup last year and wanting to win every individual honor and every team honor that he possibly could. And he's not going to get the chance to do that, most likely, in 2020. We don't know for sure yet, but it's not likely that he's going to play much of a role this season. And that hurts. It hurts for him more than anybody else, and it hurts for anybody who follows this team because things have changed. Now, they can change again on a dime depending on how this absence is rectified. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. So as things come up, if you have questions, tweet at us. We'll be trying to give you answers as they come and as we know what's going on. And if we get any different clarifications on rules or options, we will give that to you. But it's going to be an interesting week, and we will see what happens leading up to the home opener on Saturday. So until soccer over there at 6 o'clock, much platiel.
Much platiel.